Welcome, everyone. We're just still kind of settling in and getting set up. We'll start with 15 minutes of silent meditation, and then we'll start the Sutta discussion. So get yourselves in a comfortable position and you can feel settled and just allow the mind to quiet. And we'll end with a bell. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namasami. Welcome everyone. I'm going to change the view. I can see everyone. Welcome Venerables from Aranya Bodhi. It's good to see you. Today I chose a sutta that actually I've read through the entire Saṁyutta Nikāya at some time and some suttas again and again, but during my retreat at Aranya Bodhi, I encountered just somehow just in my readings and referring from one thing to another, somehow those things happen. This particular sutta, I'll type it into the chat. It's in the Connected Discourses, and it's in the Salayatana Saṁyutta. Whoops, it's not supposed to be. It's SN35, and then I believe it's 2. Let's see, I got to get it up here. 239, I believe, is the number of the sutta. I'm learning to use a new device, so no, that's not right. Should have gotten my other device. It's easier for me to use. So I'll just get the book out. And maybe the people at the Hermitage, do you have a way to screen share? That might be the easiest thing to do. I'm somewhat technologically challenged. So, it's sutta number 239 in the Salayatana Saṁyutta. That's SN35.239. If you have the hard copy, then it's on page 1239, 1239. If you have the hard copy, if you can get it on Sutta Central, or I don't know if the Venerables there at the, I don't see their faces anymore, their camera's off. I'll try to get it up here.
Hey, do you want help getting it on the computer so you can screen share?
Yeah, that'd be nice. If you could screen share, it would be nice.
Access the screen share to Ayya.
Pardon me?
You would have to get Sobana the power to screen share. Or if you make Aranya Bodhi into a co-host.
Okay. I'm getting some technical assistance here from my friend in the Dhamma, Seminary Tirabs. So, yeah, I should have just used my other device that I'm a little more familiar with. So now I finally have it on my screen here, but it's gonna need a little bit of, yeah. So this sutta, as I was saying, I was inspired by, during my, I had 6 weeks of retreat during the winter, and I just, sometimes these, oh, that's a different view. Is this Sutta Central?
This is not on Sutta Central, but it's a copy of Bhante Sujato's translation that he published as a PDF.
Oh, okay, because, yeah, it doesn't have the translation. But we can read. We could read from Bhante Sujato's and then from Bhante Bodhi's, and then we can start discussing it. And we can start pondering the Pali as well. Would someone at Aranya Bodhi like to read Bhante Sujato's through?
Certainly. So you want to do the whole thing or just?
Yeah, we'll reread the whole thing through, then we take it slowly.
Okay, I can read the whole thing.
Because it's not that long, it's a short sutta.
Okay. So, mendicants. When a mendicant has 3 qualities, they're full of joy and happiness in the present life, and they have laid the groundwork for ending the defilements. What 3? They guard the sense doors, eat in moderation, and are committed to wakefulness. And how does a mendicant guard the sense doors? When a mendicant sees a sight with their eyes, they don't get caught up in the features and details.
You can just,
Good, thank you, Ayya. If the faculty of sight were left unrestrained, bad, unskillful qualities of desire and aversion would become overwhelming. For this reason, they practice restraint, protecting the faculty of sight and achieving its restraint. When they hear a sound with their ears, when they smell an odor with their nose, when they taste a flavor with their tongue, when they feel a touch with their body, when they know a thought with their mind, they don't get caught up in the features and details. If the faculty of mind were left unrestrained, bad, unskillful qualities of desire and aversion would become overwhelming. For this reason, they practice restraint, protecting the faculty of mind and achieving its restraint. Suppose a chariot stood harnessed to thoroughbreds at a level crossroads with a goad ready. Then a deft horse trainer, a master charioteer, might mount the chariot, taking the reins in his right hand and goad in the left. He'd drive out and back wherever he wishes, whenever he wishes. In the same way, a mendicant trains to protect, control, tame, and pacify these 6 senses. That's how a mendicant guards the sense doors. And how does a mendicant eat in moderation? It's when a mendicant reflects properly on the food that they eat. Not for indulgence, adornment, decoration, but only to sustain this body, to avoid harm, and to support spiritual practice. In this way, I shall put an end to old discomfort and not give rise to new discomfort, and I will live blamelessly and at ease. It's like a person who puts ointment on a wound only so that it can heal, or who oils an axle only so that it can carry a load. In the same way, a mendicant reflects properly on the food that they eat, not for fun, indulgence, adornment, or decoration, but only to sustain this body, to avoid harm, and to support spiritual practice. In this way, I shall put an end to old discomfort and not give rise to new discomfort. And I will live blamelessly and at ease. That's how a mendicant eats in moderation. And how is a mendicant committed to wakefulness? It's when a mendicant practices walking and sitting meditation by day, purifying their mind from obstacles. In the evening, they continue to practice walking and sitting meditation. In the middle of the night, they lie down in the lion's posture on the right side, placing one foot on top of the other, mindful and aware, and focused on the time of getting up. In the last part of the night, they get up and continue to practice walking and sitting meditation, purifying their mind from obstacles. This is how a mendicant is committed to wakefulness. When a mendicant has these three qualities, they're full of joy and happiness in the present life. They have laid the groundwork for ending the defilements.
Sadhu, sadhu. So you don't have Sutta Central up, so you can't go to Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation now? I can read from Bhikkhu Bodhi's. Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation is also on Sutta Central for this particular sutta.
No, 35.
239.
So you might have noticed that the simile is about the charioteer and the horses, not just about the chariot, the vehicle. That's one thing that stood out in my mind. Well, are you... I'll talk a little bit more about it. I thought we could just read... I think that these two translations are pretty close. There's not really huge differences, but I could just read through Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. It may be Ayya Sobhan is working on the getting into Sutta Central. So also what's really beautiful about the suttas, it's starting out with three qualities that when a mendicant has these three qualities, they're full of joy, happiness in the present life, and they have laid the groundwork for the ending of defilements. So that's I think we're getting this. There we go. This is Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. Someone else could read it if they wanted to. Would somebody else like to volunteer to read from the screen?
Okay. Thank you, Ayya.
Thank you.
Are we still? We're not muted. Okay, go ahead.
Bhikkhus, by possessing three qualities, a bhikkhu lives full of happiness and joy in his very life, and he has laid a foundation for the destruction of the taints. What are the three? He is one who guards the doors of the sense faculties, who is moderate in eating, and who is devoted to wakefulness. And how, bhikkhus, is a bhikkhu one who guards the doors of the sense faculties? Here, having seen a form with the eye, a bhikkhu does not grasp its signs and features, since if he left the eye faculty unrestrained, evil, unwholesome states of covetousness and displeasure might invade him. He practices the way of its restraint. He guards the eye faculty. He undertakes the restraint of the eye faculty. Having heard a sound with the ear, having smelt an odor with the nose, having tasted a taste with the tongue, having felt a tactile object with the body, having cognized a mental phenomenon with the mind, the bhikkhu does not grasp its signs and its features, since if he left the mind faculty unrestrained, evil, unwholesome states of covetousness and displeasure might invade him. He practices the way of its restraint. He guards the mind faculty. He undertakes the restraint of the mind faculty. Suppose, bhikkhus, a chariot harnessed to thoroughbreds was standing ready on even ground at a crossroads with a goad on hand. Then a skilled trainer, charioteer of horses to be tamed, would mount it and, taking the reins in his left hand and the goad in his right, would drive away and return by any route he wants, whenever he wants. So too, a bhikkhu trains in protecting these six sense faculties, trains in controlling them, trains in taming them, trains in pacifying them. It is in this way, bhikkhus, that a bhikkhu guards the doors of the sense faculties. And how, bhikkhus, is a bhikkhu moderate in eating? Here, reflecting wisely, a bhikkhu takes food neither for amusement, nor for intoxication, nor for the sake of physical beauty and attractiveness, but only for the support and maintenance of this body, for ending discomfort and for assisting the holy life, considering, thus, I shall terminate the old feeling and not arouse a new feeling, and I shall be happy and blameless and live in comfort. Just as a person anoints a wound only for the purpose of enabling it to heal, or just as one greases an axle only for the sake of transporting a load, so a bhikkhu, reflecting wisely, takes food for assisting the holy life. It is in this way, bhikkhus, that a bhikkhu is moderate in eating. And how, bhikkhus, is a bhikkhu devoted to wakefulness? Here, during the day, while walking back and forth and sitting, the bhikkhu purifies his mind of obstructive states. In the first watch of the night, while walking back and forth and sitting, he purifies his mind of obstructive states. In the middle watch of the night, he lies down on the right side in the lion's posture, with one foot overlapping the other, mindful and clearly comprehending, after noting in his mind idea of arising. After rising, in the last watch of the night, while walking back and forth and sitting, he purifies his mind of obstructive states. It is in this way, bhikkhus, that a bhikkhu is devoted to wakefulness. Bhikkhus, it is by possessing these three qualities that a bhikkhu lives full of happiness and joy in this very life, and he has laid the foundation for the destruction of the taints.
Thank you. So, I don't know if it's easy to switch back to the Mate Sujatas with the Pali, because we might be able to have a little discussion about the Pali as well as how it's translated. I think they're similar enough. There's nothing too radically different between the two translations. I don't know if anyone who is looking at the other, while the one is read, if they saw something that was really outstandingly different. It's pretty much the same. We can go back to the top, and as I was saying, a mendicant, Bhante Sujato, uses something that's somewhat gender neutral, in English anyway. And that's actually what bhikkhu, bhikkhuni means, as a mendicant, an alms mendicant. But the Pali language is gendered, so they'd have to put the neutral gender. So you have the Pali as well in that one.
I just need a second to get it up on the Sutra Central. That's the easy.
Yeah, because we can find the words, highlight the words, and then. But I'll keep talking about the sutta. So it's starting out with guarding the sense doors, eating in moderation, and committed to wakefulness. That's how Bhante Sujato translates it. Or devoted, Bhante Bodhi says, devoted to wakefulness. So often you hear about restraint of the sense faculties, but this is talking about guarding, and actually the word there, gutta dwaro, that could be somebody's name, guarded or something. It says, with means of access of the sense faculties, guarded, defended, and controlled. So this word maybe the arrow could point out, there's a guarding or protecting the sense doors. And that sounds, instead of like restraint, and especially in the some cultures, that sounds like kind of constricted or oppressed or something like that, like you're denying yourself, but to protect, to guard, to the senses, and that includes the mind. There's the six senses, and the sixth sense is the mind. So this is, we're protecting our faculties. And then there's the description of how one guards. And Bhikkhu Bhante Sujato says that when a mendicant sees a sight with their eyes, they don't get caught up in the features and details. And Bhikkhu Bodhi says, here, having seen a form with the eye, a bhikkhu does not grasp at its signs and features. So this was kind of when I grasping at signs and features was the original way I heard it translated. And it says that if they were left unrestrained, it does talk about the idea of restraint. But it's more protecting, like with the horses. If the horses aren't tamed, they might. One time I saw some horses running loose, and I was really worried that they would run into traffic or something and get harmed, because they leapt over the fence. They got startled, and somebody at Aranya Bodhi has a hand up. Yes. Would you like to say something, Ayya?
As far as the guarding goes, there is one could think of a metaphor like the doorman in an apartment building, or the person who's taking the toll along the highway. They have to be, it's important for them to know who's allowed in and who's not allowed in, but they don't get very involved in all of the gossip and the situations, and being overly involved with a reaction. So in that way, they're not and they're not getting caught up in the signs and details. And just the same way with the mind, if we know that, say, if a mental state is arising secondary to, like if a sense impression comes along, you may notice pleasant or unpleasant. You may notice whether a skillful or unskillful state is following immediately after that, such as like or dislike and so forth like that. So if you only notice what's skillful, what's not skillful, and just notice pleasant and unpleasant, then that's a protection against getting dragged along by the story that gets concocted in the mind about the things that you see and notice.
Yeah, there's the nimitta is gahi, and that's like a sign. But I think that like you were talking about, like my eye will be caught by something that's either attractive, about something. So that's a feature. Isn't the sign like kind of a general thing, like, oh, that's a woman or that's a man? And then the features would be, oh, their hair is beautiful, oh, their eyes are beautiful, or oh, I don't like that person, they're old and decrepit, or something like that. So I was always kind of like, what are they talking about, signs and features? And he says, Bhante Sujata says, caught up, not to get caught up or to grasp. I think either one is. And then you're protecting the mind, like Ayya said, like the guard, immediately, like the guard sees that the person is, the consciousness is getting caught up or starting to grasp at one of the features, and some desire or aversion comes up. But the guard, that's a good simile to protect. I can't move this. To protect the mind, the eye consciousness, the ear consciousness, by having some awareness of unwholesome or wholesome states arising. So
The Buddha said that beautiful in sensuality, the taint of sensuality, that pretty things are not the problem. The problem is greed. And so one can notice the beauty or the quality of something, the nimitta, but if you can see the response of the arising of greed or the non-arising of greed, then you can do your job as a guard.
As a bard?
As a guard.
As a guard, yeah, guarding, protecting. Yeah, Bhante Sujata says, if the faculty of sight were left unrestrained, bad, unskillful qualities of covetousness and bitterness would become overwhelming. So the guard is protecting us from being overwhelmed. And Bhante Bodhi says, evil, unwholesome states of covetousness and displeasure might invade him or her or them. So overwhelmed or invaded by unwholesome mental states if we're not protecting our mind through through all the doors of the senses. And then Rachel Patipada has raised her hand.
I have an observation and a question. So this entire sutta is really focused on the greed, hatred, and delusion, the desire and aversion, and this form responds to that consistently, continuously. The form responds to desire and aversion. And so, since that is how this form is made, the protection of the mind you're talking about can it be like a filter? Like Ayya was saying, knowing what to keep out and what to not keep out, like the guard at the door.
Ayya, would you like? Oh, go ahead.
But in reality, we all know that's not easy to do. So in my mind, I'm thinking the first thing is about becoming aware of what is happening, aware of when the vision of something beautiful moves from that is just an object, contact, object, and leave it at that. Well, our minds are not conditioned to do that, right? So our mind gets trapped into this story creation of gravitating to what's pleasant and seeking more pleasure. So how does one get to a point of observing this and knowing when to stop before the story starts?
Well, I think that this sutta is talking about, well, it is what Ayya was saying, that observing what's arising in the mind. So if I just say, oh, that's pretty, but I don't get overwhelmed or obsessed or having talking about invading the mind, or because I just keep obsessing, oh, I've got to have that, or I've got to have more of it, or I get really upset because it's no longer available to me somehow. Like, the wildflowers are blooming, it's beautiful, a wonderful spring, and then there's a heat wave and they all die, and I'm just totally devastated and upset and angry, and why this, going on and on in my mind, obsessing. So this is unwholesome states overwhelming my mind. But if I just go, oh, anicca, this is anicca, I can enjoy them without, this continuous grasping. It's a grasping is one, grasping, and Bhante Bodhi says grasping, and both of them I think are good. What is it? Grasping, and what was the other word?
May I speak, Ayya?
Yeah, go ahead. They're not overwhelmed, and they're not grasping, and they're not. What is the other word that Bhante Sujata word used besides? I can't
Not
find
caught
it.
up.
Not caught up. Not caught up. That was it. Not being caught up or overwhelmed, and not grasping. So yeah. So go ahead, Ayya, please.
I think one possibility is to consider, why do we have these feelings in the first place? The pleasant things are the things that are good for us to get some. That's why it's natural to have a pleasant feeling and then to go get some, or to have some unpleasant feeling and then get rid of it. That's sort of like raw nature or something like that. But to develop control over the mind, to become like the charioteer who's in command, who's able to make the carriage go this way or that, whatever they want to. One good way is to wait. So if I'm feeling very tired and I see the bed and I'm just like, oh, it'd be nice to just lie down and have a little nap. Or if I'm hungry and there's something tasty in the fridge, and then if you're not mindful, you just go get some. But if you're mindful, if you wait and say, okay, what's it like to be hungry and to be wanting that? What's it like to be tired and to be wanting that? And then even try to make a choice to just wait as much as you can, even if you have to wait 10 minutes. I took a long hike day before yesterday. I hiked from the highway to Aranyabodhi. It took me 2 hours. And I wanted to stop and have a rest, sit down and have a rest. So I waited that I would do a certain number of paces before I would take that rest. Mm. So that's one way of improving, getting beyond this being like a captive of our natural tendencies, or being a puppet of our natural tendencies, as Patipada was pointing out. And then eventually, it's almost like the apparition of our natural tendencies is something that's happening in a different dimension. And we are watching it the same way. If there was a beautiful pond that was perfectly clear, and you looked in and you could see the seaweed and the lichens and the fishes and all the life at the bottom of the pond because the water was perfectly clear. That's a description for when you've gone beyond ignorance. So what I see is the wise person is not in the water with everything. He's above, outside of the water, looking into it. So we want to be in a state where, like the way the natural body is going on with desire and hatred, that we're able to stand apart and see it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ayya. Yeah, that's really a good point of just kind of stopping and just stepping back a little bit and saying, oh, this is desire arising or aversion arising. Do I really need that extra piece of dessert? I'm not going to mention any kind of dessert because, or, you know, am I really that tired that I need to lie down? You know, just really value. Thank you. Yeah, that's really good. Just pausing. Is this wholesome? Is this what I really need to do? And you were making a good point too, because why are we averse to some things and seeking pleasure? A lot of it is for the maintenance of the body. It's a kind of hardwired as physical beings in the world, seeking nutrient and seeking temperatures and different things that are supportive to the life. But I think we're not just animals, for one thing. And yeah, so an animal is just going to try to get as much as they want, not really thinking about whether it's good or bad, just because that's the nature of things, because they don't know when the next time they're going to be able to get it. But we have this human intelligence. So going beyond even that human intelligence, that I think this is what the Buddha is pointing out for us.
Thank you, Ayya.
Should we continue a little bit? We've got, so it's true for all the sense. We didn't read the simile of the chariot yet again. Do we have a reader? We could get, so whenever they have contact of any of the six senses through the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, they don't get caught up in the signs and features, or they don't get overwhelmed, or so then there's they don't get overwhelmed so that the unwholesome states don't take over. So here's this simile of the chariot. Would someone like to read that?
Suppose a chariot stood harnessed to thoroughbreds at a level crossroads, with a goad ready. Then a deft horse trainer, the master charioteer, might mount the chariot, taking the reins in his right hand and goad in the left. He drive out and back, wherever he wishes, whenever he wishes. In the same way, the mendicant trains to protect, control, tame, and pacify these six senses. That's how a mendicant guards the sense doors.
So Bhante Bodhi's translation actually stood out to me for a particular reason. It says, suppose bhikkhus, a chariot harnessed to thoroughbreds, was standing ready on even ground at a crossroads with a goad on hand. Then a skillful trainer, it says, a charioteer of horses to be tamed, would mount it and take the reins in his or her hands and the goad in the left hand and the goad in the right, and would drive away and return by any route they would want. I'm changing it to be gender neutral. Whenever they want. So too, a mendicant trains in protecting these six sense faculties, trains in controlling them, trains in taming them, trains in pacifying them. It is in this way that a person guards the doors of the sense faculties. I just changed it a little bit. But yeah, it does say a deft horse trainer, a master charioteer. But it says also about horses that are tameable. So there's this relationship between the charioteer and the horses. And the horses and the charioteer and the chariot are like one unit. And so it takes some training to have the horses I don't know how many horses they may be harnessed together, but they have to pull the chariot together, and they're not going to be running off the road to go after some grass or something on the side. They're going to follow the direction of the master charioteer. So somehow the simile just really struck me. Also, Bhante Bodhi says, bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni or upasika or samaneri, anyone, trains in protecting the six sense faculties, trains in controlling them, trains in taming them, trains in pacifying them. So it's protecting and so it's taming and pacifying. All these words, it's not just kind of restricting. It's not about restricting. And then as Ayya Sobhana was saying, then the charioteer can take the horses anywhere they want. They can. They're in complete control of the chariot. So that just really struck me when I was reading that on retreat. That it's a process, just like a horse trainer would take time and taming a horse so that they're worthy to be harnessed to a chariot. Anyway, I just thought I would share that. That's why I chose this sutta. But does anyone else have any comments about this? Anything they've noticed? Karen, simile for those who wish to be taught or trained. So who wish to be trained? We wish to engage in taming and training and pacifying the mind. Any other comments? Ann Fuller. Please go ahead.
This one phrase about the charioteer of horses to be tamed, skillful trainer, reminds me of the Buddha Nusati, of the unsurpassed tamer of people to be tamed. About the Buddha, it reminds me of that. That was all I had to say.
Thank you. Yeah, that is in a chanting, training those who wish to be trained or tamed. And so we're learning from the Lord Buddha's teaching to tame and train ourselves. Anything else? Should we go on to the next section, to look at the next section? As I was moving towards do you have something to say? You're muted, Ayya, if you wanted to speak.
Just in ordinary life, if you had a child or an adult who was extremely impulsive, you could notice that how much what an unhappy life it is to be impulsive and out of control. And so then the process of coming to well-being is a combination of that the impulsiveness gradually becomes to be lower, and also the ability to exercise restraint when you want to comes to be larger. We know just in natural life that a person who has like too much restraint without enough mindfulness, that might not be a healthy combination. The one that I learned is the way that I was brought up. Sex was considered to be really terrible, and don't do it, don't think about it, don't go anywhere close to it, and sex is bad, sex is bad, sex is bad. Well, that might be true for a small child or a young teenager, but then when you get married, you have to be able to set aside that conditioning. And some people are not able to set aside that conditioning because they become overly restrained in relation to the purpose. So we're looking for this kind of training is not like with brutality or with mindlessly controlling, not sadistic, not cruel, not mean, but something that's really very gentle and very sensitive and aware. So this idea of learning how to control and pacify the mind is done with it has to be in the presence of that sensitivity and that kindness.
Thank you, Ayya. That's a really important point. That you're talking about the middle way, not too tight, not too loose, but then the sensitivity too. That's the wisdom, sensitivity. So we know, like Patipadas, where do we stop? I mean, it's okay to be happy and enjoy just the wildflowers or something like that, but we're not obsessed by them. We just keep walking. We're not going to pick some. We don't necessarily have to take them for ourselves. But not being so uptight either that we're too rigid. We can't function well in the world. So now this is as far as sense restraint, this is a actually a practical. Here, this next section. Would someone like to read this?
I can read it.
Okay.
And how does a mendicant eat in moderation? It's when a mendicant reflects properly on the food that they eat, not for fun, indulgence, adornment, or decoration, but only to sustain this body, to avoid harm, and to support spiritual practice. In this way, I shall put an end to old discomfort and not give rise to new discomfort, and I will live blamelessly and at ease.
So we do this reflection daily before we eat our food. We'd either say it in Pali or in English. It's maybe a slightly different translation than this. But, and then just as we were speaking about moderation, it's not starving oneself and it's not overindulging. Well, this is interesting. It doesn't talk about proportions or anything like that. It talks about reflecting on the food before we eat it. Would anyone like to comment about this? Anyone here or in the Zoom? See, Patipada has her hand up.
I have a question about this because each person's body responds differently when it's hungry. And what I mean by that is the cycle of the body can be such where someone isn't hungry at breakfast, and so they're hungry at 10, and then they're not hungry again until 3, you know? And so I know one of the precepts is about not eating at inappropriate times. But if the body does not want or desire food when it's an appropriate time, then how does someone work with that?
Well, when I was a layperson, I took 8 precepts on, and I knew daily I had a set time for myself. It wasn't solar noon, but I stopped at 1 p.m. because I was still working in the world, and that was my finished time. So my body, after a certain time, got anticipated that. Because I guess if you're committed to that practice, you just wouldn't eat. You know, you would, or, you know, maybe you wouldn't eat that day, and then the next day you go, oh, I better eat at that time. Or maybe you eat it. But then the body gets accustomed to that.
So retraining. It's like retraining the body then.
Yeah, it's retraining the body.
Okay.
And then not everybody has to follow 8 precepts, and anybody can look at this reflection before they eat and make a decision to just eat moderately and not think about am I eating for intoxication? I mean, you can eat enough sugar and other things and feel kind of high, or you know, just because the taste. So why am I eating?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like Ayya was saying, it's about the greed, the desire. and really observing when that arises with every moment that we're making choices.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's pausing before we get the extra dessert or the extra whatever it is. It's yummy.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Karen has her hand.
Yeah, thank you for your reflection. I was just gonna share, like, with myself. I noticed that prior to my practice, I would get really, really cranky when I was hungry. Like I would be such a jerk when I was hungry. And then as I started practicing, with the precepts, and as my practice went along, and maybe as I got older, perhaps I noticed that I'm not really hungry that much anymore. So it's really just, like you said, I think the body becomes accustomed to the timing of when you're eating, and the mindfulness of what you're putting in your body. So I know for myself now, I could probably go a whole day without even eating. I don't know why. I feel healthy and all, but I'm just not very hungry at all. I don't know if it has something to do with age or if it has something to do with even the practice in general.
Thank you. Yeah, everybody's body's different, like Patipada was saying, and I think the more mindful we are, the more we are just we're eating for this sustaining the body, not for entertainment. So some of what we thought was, I heard there's an expression in, I think it's Overeaters Anonymous, there's a mouth hunger and there's actually bodily hunger. So you start being aware of am I just craving something to put in my mouth, or do I really need something? Should we continue?
Before leaving this topic, there's one other thing that's not very clear in this reflection, but I see it a lot in myself and in modern times. People sometimes eat because of anxiety. Like if you're not sure whether you're going to get enough food the next day, or else if it's something that's like your favorite food and you don't usually see it, and then your favorite food is offered, and it's like, oh, I might not get that particular food for a long time. And so then because of anxiety or fear about the future, one can, or even if one is like feeling badly, feeling upset, you can eat as a kind of like a sedative to calm down the feelings. Those are also ways in which food can be misused, that if we're being mindful, we can avoid those. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ayya. So there's another metaphor here, or a simile.
It's like a person who puts ointment on a wound only so that it can heal, or oils an axle only so that it can carry a load. In the same way, a mendicant reflects properly on the food they eat, not for fun, indulgence, adornment, or decoration, only to sustain this body, to avoid harm, and to support spiritual practice. In this way, I shall put an end to old discomfort and not give rise to new discomfort, and I will live blamelessly into these. That's how a mendicant eats in moderation.
So the old discomfort is the hunger, and not giving rise to new discomfort is a indigestion. I think that's the explanation I heard of that. Does anyone do you have a different take on that? Did you hear another description for that?
I do have a different take.
Uh-huh.
We eat to live. So eating is very much involved with craving for existence. And so then if we want to live and we do everything because we want to live, then that's setting up a situation where at the end of this life, we'll be reborn into another life. So the old feeling is like wanting to live, and the new feeling is getting reborn, because you spent your whole life trying to get more life.
Thank you. I hadn't heard that one. I just heard the one about hunger and overindulgence. But that makes sense too. In the Buddha's teaching, that makes perfect sense. Upadisami. Yatra made. Bhavisati. Oh, okay. Anawajata. So the na is somewhere, it's a little bit not near the bhavisati, I guess. But it's in the sentence, so it negates it. Yatra chame bhavisati. Anyway, trying to ponder the Pali a little bit to understand it, to see what you were referring to is actually in there. And if you're just depending on the English translation, then you might not see these things. Well, thank you so much. Ranya Bodhi has cameras off. I'm trying to use the computer like a touch screen and scroll it. Now we get to being devoted or committed to wakefulness is the next. I don't know what's happening with the Aranya Bodhi. There they are. So, how are we committed to wakefulness? It's when a mendicant practices walking and sitting meditation by day, purifying their mind from obstacles. In the evening, they continue to practice walking and sitting meditation. In the middle of the night, they lay down in lion's posture on the right side, placing one foot on top of the other, mindful, aware, and focused on the time of getting up. So, if you just look at this part of it, it's like purifying the mind. This is the actual wakefulness. It struck me one time when I was looking at it. It's not forcing yourself to only sleep 4 hours, is it? Because if you calculate when they talk about the watches of the night, it's like 4 hours of sleep. But they practice walking and sitting meditation by day and throughout the day to purify their mind from obstacles. I don't know if anyone else has anything to say. Should we be forcing ourselves only to sleep 4 hours, forcing ourselves awake? There's somewhere
I
they
think that
go ahead.
The Buddha said we should not be addicted to too much sleeping.
So there's moderation. Is there moderation here? What is your answer?
One extreme would be not sleeping at all, and the other extreme would be sleeping for 8 or 10 hours. And so 4 hours is the middle way.
But do you think somebody? Don't you think? Okay, go ahead, Ayya. Go ahead. Explain your argument.
Well,
A little further than math.
this is just what I've read in the suttas. But what we hear from modern medical people is that Americans in general, and especially teenagers and young people, don't get enough sleep, and it's detrimental to their health. So they do recommend that we get enough sleep, and they think, especially for a young person, that 8 hours is the amount of sleep that somebody should have. It really depends on the individual body, and it changes with the passage of age.
So if I'm purifying my mind of obstructive states, do you think that I would need more sleep or less sleep? If my mind was getting into more still, peaceful states?
Yeah. What I was going to say is that, yes, people have different needs for sleep, but it also changes depending on how they're spending their time. And I think a lot of people experience that if they are on a deep retreat and they're spending all their time in sitting and walking meditation, that often the need for sleep naturally reduces at those times of intensive secluded practice like that. I've heard some teachers like Ajahn Brahm, for instance, says you should get as much sleep as you need, but also that it will naturally decrease at those times. So.
We used to notice when people come on a retreat, their life is so busy and they had to do so much running around to get ready for the retreat. Then, like the first 2 days or 3 days of their retreat, they sleep a lot because they're crashing and overcoming all of the stress that they were under before.
Yeah, I think there is the circumstances that supports. I mean, naturally, if the mind is, it's just like a physical body. If you're, like doing a lot of hard physical work, you're going to really need to rest, and take some time to really rest the body. And if your mind is stressed and busy and occupied with a lot of different things, there's a lot of sensory impact, then the mind is fatigued. So I think this is a special circumstance when a person has, I want to scroll that, when a person has the opportunity to devote themselves to walking and sitting and not having a lot of other activities, then it may not be at the beginning of that period of time, but later it may be that 4 hours is just plenty. And then what I really love, though, is that this very next sentence after how is one devoted or committed to wakefulness, it says, here during the day, walking back and forth and sitting, person, I'm changing a little bit, purifies the mind of obstructive states. And I think this is also the devotion to wakefulness, is that being aware or of what's arising in the mind. And it goes back to the protecting the mind from the unwholesome states. That the first, this is another way of guarding the mind. So so just some sentences just strike me in a particular way. And I do notice too, well, as I get older, I've needed less sleep. But when I have an opportunity to meditate more and I have less, certainly mental activity, then the need for sleep goes down. Anyway, the Buddha, I don't think he has a formula that's rigid, that one size fits all kind of teaching he's got. He would speak differently to different groups of people, and what. So, Jagariya, isn't there a monk? Jagari. Wakeful, watchfulness. Yeah, so devoted to, committed to. That's interesting, watchfulness. And the idea of being awake, what is that? To be awake, really? So there's, okay, were you going to say something, Ayya?
So purifying the mind from obstacles. The obstacle would be like a kind of like a cloud or a fog or a darkness that makes it impossible to see things, like see how it really is. And then the purifying is clearing away and resolving those things that are blocking, those things that are putting a cloud of darkness and preventing us from being able to see clearly with insight. But this wakefulness, in a certain way, is sort of going back to the beginning of the sutta with guarding the senses. Like in order to guard the senses, you have to be wakeful. If you are oblivious, or if you're out of it and not paying attention, or if you're clouded over by different kinds of delusions or obstacles, then you won't be able to see things well enough to be able to guard the senses. So the real answer, like Patipada was asking at the beginning, like how to, considering that the body has those natural tendencies. And the answer given here is that actually it's the meditation that leads to developing the ability to guard the senses and not be trapped or not be a puppet from those tendencies.
So, yeah, I think the meditation is in the daily life as well as in the formal practice. So just that wakefulness, the awareness, this deciding to have that guard, the guard at the door. Thank you, Ayya. Ruwanti, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, just a comment. The word wakefulness reminded me of the word yoniso manasikara. So probably it's the alertness in the mind or being aware of what's going in the mind. Does that also has a connection with this one?
Ayya Sobana, would you like to say something to that?
There are many near synonyms that are metaphors or ways of pointing to the same quality. And I believe that wakefulness, heedfulness, mindfulness, and yoniso manasikara is often translated as clear comprehension, the wise attention. So manasikara is to make the mind aware, and then the yoniso is to go down, to go deep, not just to be on the surface, but to look underneath to the deep causes or to the deep nature of things. So the answer is, I think that's true, what you pointed out.
Well, thank you, Ayya.
I think you have some other comments in the chat.
Pardon me? Yeah, so
There's some other.
just exactly that the going to the source or going deeply. So, whoops. Yeah, it's a different aspect of the mind being aware, the mind being alert and aware. Like I wasn't aware that this bell ringer was on the other side of the book, and I moved the book, and then this has a tendency to roll because it's a rounded object. So if we're not aware of things, then accidents happen. But the more awareness we are of our tendencies, and then it doesn't seem like an accident because we're understanding what the causes are. And then, so this is the yoniso is going to what is this impulse and this, where is it coming from? and then being able to see it sooner, see like the pausing that Ayya Sobana was talking about. I examined, oh, there's this impulse to grab the refrigerator door and open and grab something from it. What is that? Is it? I'm feeling anxious and I want to shove something in my mouth. It's arising from dukkha. So yeah, so this awareness, this wakefulness, there's a lot of different, I guess, strata of the mind almost, and then what's being developed, these different skills. We're developing these skills of awareness, and they can manifest in different ways. So I appreciate your comments. What were you going to say?
I wonder if you'd like to mention ways that a person can be mindful while they're not just on retreat doing sitting and walking practice, but they're out and about doing chores, meeting with people, and answering emails and so forth. How to practice the fullest awareness. I know that one idea that I heard from Bhante Thanissaro is to just try continuously from getting up in the morning until going to sleep at night to always know what you're doing. So now I'm lying down for a nap. Now I'm getting a snack from the fridge. Now I'm, wasting time. Now I'm getting another cup of tea. Or knowing, like, even if what we're doing is like not so skillful, just to acknowledge and to know what you're doing, then that's the beginning of being able to moderate it. It doesn't mean that you always have to be like 100% doing things that are really noble and very useful and profound, but just to know what you're doing. I think there are other ways that a person can practice, like being more meditative throughout the day.
Thank you. I just want to add a little bit to that, is that if we see these patterns, like we see that I'm anxious, so I behave in this way, we start, this is part of wakefulness, bringing the awareness to that. And if it's like an unwholesome activity that's triggered by something, then we can, that's the Yoniso Manasikara, going back to the source. Where is it coming from? Further we go back, the more we can be a little bit more directing of like the charioteer has been more in control of the horses. And Karen has a hand up.
I was gonna share when I started my practice, I made 2 intentions. One was to add more love than hate into the world. And then the other intention was to create my own happiness in a loving kindness way. And then when I would walk out the door, I would remind myself that my practice is going to be tested in how will I respond, and trying to remember the Eightfold Path when I closed the door and walked out into the world. So those were ways that I tried to implement mindfulness in my everyday practice.
Yeah, that's important, to set an intention, or to be committed, make a commitment to oneself. And it closes here, this one sentence here, it says, I'm going to change it to a person. When a person has these 3 qualities, they're full of joy and happiness in the present life, and they have laid the groundwork for ending the defilement. So that's the asavas. And it's translated variously. Asava, the destruction of the taints, or the destruction of defilements, is kind of more generic. The outflows, the inflows, there's different ways these are translated. But I'd like to mention that Ayya will be leading a retreat May 12th through the 14th, and it's about the destruction of the asavas. And we're a little bit over time, but I don't know if she wants to mention something quickly. The battery on this is running low. So, did you want to mention something about your retreat?
If you would visit Dhammadharini.net, you can see the description of the retreat and register to participate.
Thank you, Ayya. And Ayya will be taking over this program. I'll be away, so I appreciate all her teaching and her skill in the Dhamma, and I rejoice for everybody having the opportunity to hear Ayya Sobhana's teaching, and Hope we can all benefit from that. So, to Ayya Sobana, pay respects. And we can turn, and if you have a Buddha image, or you can see the Buddha image on our screen here, maybe. Oopsie. I'm going to see what the view is here. Oops, wrong screen. I'm going to change it to pinning myself again. Pin. Okay, there we go. So now you can see the Buddha image a little bit more on the screen, and I will try to get myself in the direction of the Buddha image. And so we can close with the Arahant. Araham Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammamasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sangham Namami. Thank you all for your patient listening and your participation.